Firstly, I'd like to thank you for inviting me here today. It's wonderful to stand here and say the words, "I am Martha's mum." I don't hear that very much these days. When I gave birth to Martha at the John Radcliffe Hospital in 1997, she looked at me with one eye open and one eye closed, as though she was squaring up to me and saying, "I suppose you'll do." I was absolutely entranced by her, as most people who met her were. Being a parent is the best job in the world. Our children look into our eyes with such trust and optimism, and we as parents project our hopes and dreams back at them. Some of you may have heard my story before. So next month will be the 3rd anniversary of Martha's death, who was 15 at the time and my only child. She died within 2 hours of swallowing half a gram of ecstasy that turned out to be 91% pure. On that beautiful July Saturday morning, it gave no hint as to what was about to unfold. Martha left my home and went kayaking across town as she did every Saturday. She never came home again. What was returned to me in the end in her school bag was her shoes, which I brought with me today. Saying these words out loud still takes my breath away, and I think I'll spend the rest of my life trying to recover from this. In those moments of early bereavement, it was as though I was floating above the world. Everything seemed in slow motion and in technicolor. I noticed butterflies and flowers and the noise the leaves made from the trees as they swished in the warm breeze. All my senses were heightened. Noises were distorted. A teaspoon on a saucer sounded like someone was banging cymbals by my ears. Looking back, I suppose the intense shock numbs you and your adrenaline kicks in order to protect you. That innate fight or flight element we're all born with. As a single mother, Martha and I spent the majority of the 15 years and 9 months together. And I feel so very lucky to have collected such wonderful memories during that time. She was a perfect little travel companion. I took her around the world. She rode a camel in Egypt and an elephant in Bali. She swam in the Great Barrier Reef, and her life is so full of adventure, despite it being cut short. Martha was so very loving and kind. She was starting to get involved in local issues, such as the provision for teenage mental health in Oxford. I think I had cultivated a little activist who would have contributed so much to this world. She was also incredibly witty, as many children are. She'd look over my shoulder and say, "Mum, you're Googling Google again. You're going to break the internet." And I'd smile and carry on regardless. But I borrowed her for just a little while, and I lived to tell the tale. I have experienced the best in human kindness since losing my girl. From all over the world, people have gone out of their way to say a kind word to me and offer their help. And this has given me the strength to recognise that my life is still abundant, and the precious life I have left is still worth living. As your tears reflect in mine, we are all connected, human to human. I started writing my book within 6 hours of Martha dying, finishing in what would have been her 16th birthday, 102 days later. Those who have read it say it's surprisingly full of hope. When I was writing it, it was as though my life depended on it, and getting everything out of my head felt as though I was clearing up the mess around me and putting out the embers of my old life in order to cultivate a new one. I'm going to read you a short extract from my book now. July 22nd, day 2. My eyelids finally stopped fighting the sleep last night, and I slept deeply and soundly. I wake up early. My heart is beating, but it pangs with the loss, knowing that I will always miss her. I missed her even when she was only away for a few hours, but this type of missing is peculiar, unnatural. Getting used to her not being here goes against what every cell in my body feels. I am a mother. That is what I do. Mothers care and plan ahead. Mothers nurture and nag you to tidy your bedroom. Mothers tell you to shower after you've been swimming in the lake. Martha would make excuses and go to bed with the grit of the day on her. I'll never get to nag her again. I'll never get to tell her her room is a mess. Oh, how I wish I could nag her again and hear her excuses. I'll do it later, she said. I'll shower after kayaking tomorrow. I'd be both bemused and irritated by this, but that is a luxury now I'll never get to practice again. I am still a mother, but not a practicing one. I have all these mothering skills which I know will be useful in my life, but their original purpose is no longer what they'll be used for. Martha, if you're here with me now, please hold my hand and guide me to show me what you want. I love you so much and don't know where to channel this love now. I have too much of it, and it was all for you. I'll give some of it to myself now as I need it. I'll give some to family, friends and strangers, but I've still got too much left. It feels like a burden, but I know it will get easier. So as the days turned to months, I floated back down to earth and realised that my precious life was patiently waiting for me. In the meantime, a court case was proceeding, and a 17-year-old boy who supplied my daughter's friends with the drugs was awaiting his sentence. I remember going to Oxford Magistrates' Court. This was now about 8 months after Martha died. 2 barristers approached me, and I heard myself telling them that I didn't want him to go to prison. When the hearing was called, I was shaking with nerves as I made my way up the staircase. When I went into the court, I looked over as a young boy holding a bag made his way into a glass box. We glanced at each other for a long time. It was a very strange moment. I felt numb and couldn't wait for it to be over with, so I was desperate to move on with my life. In the end, my wishes were passed to the judge, and he didn't get sent to prison. He was given an 18-month supervision order with a 90-day curfew and 50 hours of charity work. When the press asked me what I thought about the sentence, I said that I was more interested to see what he goes on to do with his life. The media took that as me forgiving him, and in some ways I suppose it was. Forgiveness for me is really about reconciling something within myself in order to survive what happened. It's about paying tribute to my darling Martha and trying to create a positive legacy to leave behind long after I'm gone. A series of letters was started between myself and the young boy. The first couple were understandably cautious, but gradually our trust grew, and in time I got to hear the voice of the boy behind the headlines. I was able to ask him questions that only he could answer, and through our correspondence I felt a great weight lift off my shoulders. I have since gone on to visit many prisons with the Forgiveness Project in order to tell my story and try to inspire others to restore whatever they can within their own lives. It's incredible to work with people who seem to have lost all hope of a future, and to do whatever I can to show them that regardless of what life throws at you, you can make the most of what you have left. I have learnt so much about myself over the past couple of years, and although I'd love to be here under happier circumstances, I want you all to know that behind all this I'm actually doing incredibly well. And isn't that amazing? My story may be tragic, but my life isn't, and I am determined to make the most of what's left. Martha's absence has resulted in me finding my voice, and the campaigning I'm doing on drug policy is in order to prevent any of you from becoming me. My dream is for the UK to look around the world to other countries to see what new approaches are working and to adopt similar best practice in order to keep your children safe and in order to save lives. Albert Einstein said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result." With this in mind, I will continue to take the steps around the world that Martha never will. I will go wherever the answers lie. and I will keep telling my story until I am certain that we will no longer be passing the rusty shackles of outdated laws onto future generations. My primal scream to everyone in this room is, don't forget my Martha. She was still here less than 3 years ago, and her death was preventable. I'd like to finish with an anonymous quote saying, "While we try to teach our children all about life, our children teach us what life is all about." Thank you.